Hello, everyone. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November 17th. We are on day 9 of our Wit and Wisdom Module 2. And we are going to be writing today. We're going to start our writing, I should say. So you need to make sure that you have your knowledge and response journal ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start the video. Share my screen.
Welcome back, powerful thinkers. I'm Sue Sabella, your Great Minds teacher. Let's see what we need for today. Today we'll need Plains Indians, handout 9A, focusing question task 2, evidence organizer, your journal, and a pencil. I'll also be showing you the focusing question task, but I'll be pulling that up on my screen, so you'll be able to see it there. Please pause to gather what you need and then just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so you are going to need your journal, your knowledge response journal, a pencil, and then we have a copy of Plains Indians digitally. And I have uploaded the focusing question task for you to look at if you want to look at that on your own, okay? So the only thing that you really need right now is your journal and a pencil.
It's so cool to become an expert on a topic, and you've been working hard to do that. You've also been gathering evidence and deciding on which key points you would like to include in your own writing. Today, we're going to continue to build on that skill, and as we do, your knowledge will continue to grow and you'll become even more of an expert. This question has been guiding our thinking throughout the whole module. I'd like you to pause here so you can read the question to yourself and then just hit play when you're ready to continue.
So what was life like in the West for the Americans?
As historians are becoming experts on the past, they take those bigger questions like the one that you just read, and they develop other questions that help to narrow their focus for what they're learning. That's this question here. I'd like you to read it to yourself, and then when you come back, we'll read it together. So please pause to read, and then just hit play when you're ready to continue.
What was life like for Plains Indians in the early American West?
What was life like for Plains Indians in the early American West? You'll be working on informative writing so you can share what you've learned about Plains Indians. Let's choral read, which means we'll read this question together. Ready? Here we go. What does looking at the importance of plants and animals reveal to us? Today, we'll be exploring how plants and animals were important to the Plains Indians. We're going to look over this assessment together. We'll go through the steps for how to do the task. After this video, you'll know what to write. Your classroom teacher will tell you how to show your work to them and how to turn it in. First, let's take a look at the task. The task tells us, write an informative paragraph to answer one of the following questions. How were plants important in Plains Indians' lives? Or how were animals important in Plains Indians' lives? Support your response using evidence from the following text, Plains Indians by Andrew Santella. Now, let's take a look at the checklist for success. Be sure to include all of the following in your response. A topic statement, at least 2 points with evidence, a conclusion, topic-specific words. You'll choose to write about either plants or animals, but together we'll examine the evidence for both before you decide. Your classroom teacher will tell you how the assessment will be completed. How do I choose points for my informative paragraph? We're going to start together, and then I'm going to be turning it over to you for your own paragraph. We're going to be gathering evidence about how the Plains Indians used plants to help them survive, and also how they used animals to help them survive. If you do not have a copy of this evidence organizer, no worries. You can make a simple T-chart in your journal. Pause here to make a T-chart in your journal or to grab handout 9A, the Focusing Question Task 2 Evidence Organizer, and your pencil. If you have a copy of the Plains Indians, you can also grab that now. Just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so you need to open up your journal to page 63. We are on page 63 today, and we are going to go ahead and just make a T-chart in our journal. We're going to do it the simple way. So on the left side, we're going to write plants, and on the right side, we're going to write animals. And let me see. I think we need 4 boxes. So we need to go ahead and make the T-chart. Okay, so you're going to make your T-chart, and then we're going to divide this into 4 boxes. Okay, just like this. So we have 4 boxes on each side. Okay, make sure your page 63 looks just like this. All right, and we're going to get back to the video. A lot of our video today, we're just going to be watching Miss Sabella, and then we will do more interaction afterwards.
Please follow along on your copy or on the copy on the screen as I read the directions. Find evidence about each topic. Write words or phrases in the boxes about important points that develop the topic statement. Let's take a closer look at the first topic statement that you could choose. Let's read it together, or choral read it. The Plains Indians use plants to help them survive. And remember, survive means to live, even when it's hard or challenging. Let's do some research together. We'll gather evidence for the first topic statement, how Plains Indians use plants to help them survive. If you have a copy of the Plains Indians book, you can now turn to page 20. We'll be using page 20 and 21 to gather evidence on this topic. You're probably going to notice that as I'm doing research, I'll be reading a little bit and also writing a little bit so I can jot down my evidence as I go. Are you ready? Here we go. I'm starting at the top of page 20. What did early Plains Indians farm? Farming was the main source of food and wealth for those early Plains Indians that lived in villages. I hear something that I'd like to jot down in my evidence organizer. As I gather my evidence or take notes, it's okay just to use words and phrases. I do not need to use complete sentences here. That will happen when I write my informative paragraph. I'm jotting down most food from farming. I chose this piece of evidence because the Plains Indians got most of their food from farming. The plants on the farm would help them survive. Let's continue on page 20.
Okay, before we go on, what I want you to do on your page 63 of your journal for point 1, under plants, you need to write, just like Miss Sabella wrote, most food from farming. Okay, so your page 63 should start to look like this. I added a number 1 on the corner and I wrote most food from farming. Okay, so as we go through this with Miss Sabella, you need to be copying down on your evidence organizer what she is writing down in hers. Okay, so let's keep going.
Farming tribes lived on very fertile land along the major rivers of the Great Plains. With plentiful rain and good growing conditions, they could grow more corn and other crops than they needed. Extra crops could be traded with other tribes for metal tools, cloth, bison hides, and other valuable goods. Those extra goods could help them survive. I'm going to jot this down too. Traded crops for goods. Crops are plants, and they were able to use those plants to get goods to help them to survive. Let's keep reading on page 20.
Okay, make sure that you wrote down what Miss Sabella wrote down for part 2. Traded crops. I don't know what is going on with my mouse right there. Okay, here we go.
Farming was mainly the work of women. They planted the fields, tended them, and harvested the crops. Their tools were made from things found in the natural world around them. They used animal bones, horns, and antlers to make hoes and rakes. Women also made clay pots for storing food. So I hear something again about crops, which we've already gathered in the evidence organizer, and also animal bones, which is very interesting, but it's not about plants. So I'm going to keep reading. I'm on page 21 now. The 3 sisters, corn or maize, as American Indians called it, was the most important crop for most tribes. It grew well in many areas, was easily stored, and could be prepared in a variety of ways. It could be used in soups and stews, or it could be dried and pounded into cornmeal. Wow, there's a lot of ways they could use corn. And I'm thinking that's really going to help them to survive. I'll keep reading this page to see if this is the best piece of evidence I could find from this page. Women used wooden tools called pestles to grind dried corn into meal. Farming tribes almost always planted corn alongside squash and beans. Corn stalks provided a pole for bean vines to climb. The leaves of the squash plants helped keep the soil moist. Because the 3 crops worked so well together, they were often called the 3 sisters. Farming tribes also grew pumpkins, sunflowers, and tobacco. There's so much interesting information on this page, but when I think about the piece of evidence that really connects to what could help the Plains Indians survive, I keep coming back to the corn. It could be used in so many ways. I'm going to jot that down. Corn made soups, stews, and cornmeal. If you need more time to add this evidence to your evidence organizer or T-chart in your journal, please pause here to add this evidence in about how plants help the Plains Indians survive. Just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so what we've got so far on the plant section, we have 3 things. Most food from farming, traded crops for goods, corn made soups, stews, and cornmeal. Make sure that you have all of these written. Okay, and then when you're done, you can just push play. And when I share the screen, you'll be able to see what Miss Sabella has written on hers. You can pause and then hit play when you're ready to resume.
You've been working very hard, and it's definitely a good time for a stretch break. Pause here to take a stretch break and just hit play when you're ready to continue. Now it's your turn. You'll gather evidence to show how animals helped the Plains Indians survive. You have a choice here. If you have a copy of Plains Indians and you'd like to read on your own, we'll be reading pages 14 through 17. And you can pause me here to read on your own and gather your own evidence. If you do not have a copy of Plains Indians with you, or you'd like to listen as I read aloud and gather your evidence, you can follow along with me. But you're in charge. As I'm reading, you'll need to pause so you can jot your evidence down, and then you'll hit play to continue. Ready? Here we go. I'm on page 14 at the top. What animals did early Plains Indians need? Plains Indians depended on several different kinds of animals to provide many of their daily needs. The bison was at the center of life for early Plains Indians. The bison is the largest land animal to roam North America in modern times. Even though an adult weighs as much as about 1 ton or over 2,000 pounds, bison can still run at speeds of around 30 miles per hour. For thousands of years, bison roamed the Great Plains in huge herds. I'm now on page 15. These enormous animals provided most of what Plains peoples needed to live. Plains Indians were experts at hunting bison and at making use of every part of the animal. The clothes they wore and the cone-shaped tents they lived in, called teepees, were made from bison hides. They sharpened the bones of bison and carved them into tools. They used the horns of bison to make spoons, cups, rattles, and toys. They braided shaggy bison hair into rope.
Okay, so what did you guys hear in that section that Miss Sabella just read about how the buffalo helped the Plains of Indians survive? What about the bison helped them the most? Like, not to have extra things, like the toys weren't necessary, the spoons weren't necessary. They didn't need those things. What were something that they got from the buffalo that they had to have to survive the cold winters and the hot summers? What did they have to have that they got from the buffalo? clothing. They got their clothing, and they got their teepees, the cloth that went around their teepees. They got those both from the bison hide. So on our page 63 on our chart needs to be our first point. Made clothes and teepees from bison hides. Okay, so let's keep going and see if we can hear the next thing that Miss Sabella is going to read to us. I'm already sharing. Let's keep going.
Of course, bison were an important source of food too. After men hunted the animals, women cut up the bison meat. They preserved some of it for later by cutting it into long strips and hanging it to dry on racks in the hot sun. Once meat was dried this way, it could be stored for long periods without spoiling. The bison was like a walking store, providing food, clothing, tools, and more. Even bison waste was put to use. Plains Indians used it as fuel for their campfires. Now I'm on page 16. Transportation.
Stop right
Before
a second. What is something that we just heard that the bison provided for the Plains Indians that they had to have to survive, especially those Western Plains Indians that were nomadic, that didn't get to sit around and farm at their villages? What did they eat, guys? They ate mostly the buffalo, and then what they gathered as they were being nomads. So I think our second point needs to be that the bison meat was food. What was their food source? The bison meat was their food source. Kind of hard to see for some reason. Bison meat was a food source. And after you get this copy down, you can pause, copy this down, and then hit play to continue.
they acquired horses, early Plains Indians traveled on foot. They relied on dogs to carry heavy loads as they followed bison herds across the plains. They loaded their supplies and belongings onto a kind of sled called a travois. A travois was made of two poles tied together in a V shape with strips of rawhide stretched across the V. The travois was attached to the shoulders of a dog, which dragged the load behind itself. Now I'm on page 17.
Okay, let's stop right there. What did we just hear? What is another animal that made survival easier for the Plains Indians? It was the dog. And what did the dog do that helped the Plains Indians survive? Right, so the dogs pulled their heavy loads on their travois. Like the Native Americans, the Plains Indians, they couldn't have piled everything on their back and carried it for miles and miles and miles. They wouldn't have been able to do that. But by putting the travois on a dog, the dog was able to pull it a lot easier. So our third point needs to be dogs pulled heavy loads. So please make sure you get this one written down in your journal. And then you may push play to continue.
Horses. The first modern horses were brought to North America by Spanish explorers in the 1600s. Small, early horses had once lived in North America millions of years ago, but they had died out by 9000 BCE. Plains Indians began to acquire horses through trading with other tribes or by raiding other tribes. By the late 1700s, horses were common among Plains Indians. Horses changed the way Plains Indians lived. With horses, Plains Indians could travel farther and faster than ever before. It made their nomadic lifestyle easier, allowing them to move their camps from place to place as they followed the bison. Plains Indians also found that they could track and hunt bison more effectively on horseback. Tribes such as the Crow gave up their farming lifestyle to become nomadic hunters. Horses also made them more effective warriors, able to attack their enemies quickly and suddenly. I'd like you to pause.
Okay, so we're going to pause right there. So what is something that we just heard that made it easier for the Plains Indians to survive? What about the horses? They were able to travel farther distances than they could on foot, and they could do it a whole lot faster than by walking. So our fourth point needs to be horses traveled far and fast. Okay, so let's continue with our video.
Pause here to make sure you have the evidence that you need. Also, remember, it's okay to scroll back on the timeline and to listen again. It's just like turning a page back when you're rereading a book. Please pause here to work and then just hit play when you're ready to continue.
So if you need to pause here and continue writing down your information, there has been a photo of page 63 uploaded onto the Google Classroom. So if you need to open that up and copy down the information, you can go ahead and do that and then push play when you're ready.
I wish I could take a peek at your evidence organizer or your T-chart. I bet you are very choosy about the evidence that you selected. Since you focused on animals, I'm sure you noticed that there was evidence connected to dogs, horses, and bison. I wish I could see it. I think you're ready to move on. Now it's time for you to make a choice. You get to choose which topic statement and points you'll focus on for your informative paragraph. Will you focus on topic statement 1, the Plains Indians used plants to help them survive? Or topic statement 2, the Plains Indians used animals to help them survive? Circle the topic statement that you're choosing and also the column that has the points that you're choosing. After you've chosen your topic statement and your points, remember you can use your evidence organizer to practice your paragraph out loud. You can practice it out loud with a learning partner. You might even be able to ask your learning partner or teacher if you can record what you're saying out loud so you can listen back to it. Remember, your points are just words and phrases right now. You'll need to turn them into complete sentences as you practice out loud, so you're ready to write complete sentences when you write your informative paragraph. Practice as much as you need to out loud, and then just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so what you need to do right now is you need to make the choice. Do you want to write about how plants helped the Plains Indians survive? Or do you want to write about how animals helped the Plains Indians survive? It is up to you. It's your choice what you want to write. But whichever one that you choose, you need to circle it. So I'm going to choose with my green marker. Like I'm going to choose the one I want to write about. You do not have to write about the same one I want to write about. I'm going to write about animals. So I am circling in green animals because that's going to be my topic statement about how the animals helped Plains Indians survive. Okay. Then we usually do yellow, blue, yellow, but we don't need to do that this time because all of this information is about what I'm going to write about. We don't need to choose different pieces of information because everything in this column is already about animals. Okay. So you choose what you want to write about right now. And then you are going to practice out loud what your writing is going to sound like. Okay. So I'm talking about animals. I am not going to say bison meat was food source. That is not a complete sentence. I need to turn that information into a complete sentence. Okay. My topic statement says, the Plains Indians used animals to help them survive. I'm going to take my first point. And I'm going to say, the Plains Indians made clothes and teepees from bison hides. The bison meat was their main food source. The dogs pulled their heavy loads so they didn't have to carry them. And horses traveled far and fast to help them find the buffalo herds. Do you see how I took that information and I turned them into sentences? Okay, I did not just repeat what is on that chart. Those are not sentences. You need to make sentences, okay? All right, so you are going to practice that several times, as many times as you want to, whichever one that you are going to talk about. You can use the Class Dojo if you want to record yourself doing it. You can record yourself on the Class Dojo, or if you want to use Flipgrid, you can use that one also. Listen to yourself repeating it, okay? Think about, what do I need to say differently? What do I need to add? What should I take away? Listen to yourself practice before we start writing. All right, we're almost finished.
Now that you've gathered your evidence and practiced your informative paragraph out loud, your teacher will tell you where to complete your work. I know you're going to do a great job. It's been so much fun to learn and grow with you today. I will see you again soon, my friends.
All right, so what I want you to do today is you are just going to practice it verbally. We are going to write tomorrow, okay? We're going to take the evidence organizer and we're going to turn it into a paragraph in tomorrow's lesson, okay? So just worry about getting your evidence organizer filled in. Make sure you choose if you're going to do plants or animals, and then practice it out loud so that you know what you're going to write tomorrow, okay? All right, so that's all that we have, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and I will see you for phonics in a little bit. Bye.